Welcome to the South Star Classroom. Can you hear me?
We can.
See?
Good to see you, brother.
Oh,
Great. How are y'all doing? We are here at episode 100 or 200 and
226, baby.
226. Wow. Got a great show for you today. See where the discussion takes us. Not sure if Jubilee is going to be joining us, but I am David Castillo, one of the co-hosts of the show. We've got Dr. Charles Cole here as well, and I'll hand it over to you. But wanted to hear from Brother Omar Yanar and see how he's doing in his neck of the woods, which could be anywhere from Switzerland to El Paso.
Indeed, man. Indeed. I am currently in El Chuco, affectionately El Paso right now, man. I was a bit all over the map previously. Things are, man, it's like springtime full effect up in Chuco, man. Things are good. Came back from Montana recently. Yo, man, Montana's a wild state. Y'all ever been out there?
Never been.
I have not been.
I recommend checking it out, man. It is wild. I mean, and I mean wild as in like truly, literally, and figuratively. It's absolutely beautiful. For some reason, Bozeman, Montana has some of the most expensive ass real estate. I don't know if it was Yellowstone, the show, or what did it, but people buying up real estate up in Bozeman, Montana. It's a very beautiful spot, but there's not a lot of people, fellas. It looks still kind of like the old West in a really cool and delightful way. But we're ramping up for spring break soon, David. So it's just that like turn and burn of getting shit done. And then when we come back, we got testing. So quiet before the storm, brother. How are y'all doing, man? It's so good to see you all. I missed y'all last week.
Hello, David. How you doing, brother? Yeah, let's go with David. I love when he's perfectly under the yeah. You gotta.
There you go. I'm doing good. Feeling better today. I had a doctor appointment on Friday of last week, so make sure that you are getting your regular checkups. And they vaccinated me for pneumonia and the flu. And guess who was in bed all weekend?
This guy. Shit!
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible, man. It's crazy. I mean, they tell you what's going to happen, and then it happens. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it definitely happened to me. And it's just your body. Your body thinks that like you're sick, and so it fights it off. It boosts up your all of your immunities. And does it make sense to give both of these at the same time? And they're like, we don't normally do that. I'm like, well, thanks. Yeah. They just give you the shot and they walk away, and then you walk away. They never see you again. It's not a problem for them. But other than that, doing well. Definitely feeling well. So we've got spring break in the home. Micah has spring break coming up in 2 weeks. Also, we're going to be traveling down to the west coast of Florida. Spend some time down there with the family, and hopefully get out on the boat and do all those Florida things. What else? Feeling the spring break thing, man. Like I had 2 calls today with 2 different clients, both school operators, and they're like stressed out, all in different ways. But I'm like helping to remind people. I'm like, okay, we're coming to the tail end of that long stretch from New Year to spring break, and people are just, it's a stressful time. And then we come back, and then pretty much the school year ends. But that's pretty much it.
Man,
good.
I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad that you won't get the flu, even though you kind of had the flu-like symptoms. And like, just give it to them. It reminds me when I was younger. I think I told the story here before, and I had siblings, and when one of us got the chicken pox, and my parents made one of us give the rest chicken pox so we can just get it out the way. And then they came out with a vaccine. But before pre-vaccine chicken pox, it was a thing.
Shit.
So that's what I was chuckling about. I was remembering those
That's
times.
old school.
Funny. Yeah, because the older you get with chicken pox, the worse it is. Like, so
Yep.
you know, I've known people that got chicken pox as an adult. It can turn into a different thing when you older. So,
Yes.
yeah. But I've had chicken pox, so there we go. I'm good, man. I'm just, working, grinding, happy to be here, excited for your show today. And I think I was talking about Fuller's his documentary that's out and is doing well. So we're hosting an event for him next week, a live watch party. I had a goal of like 200 RSVPs. Brother, we are already there. We are already just under 200.
That's great.
Yes. And if you mind, before we hop into the topic, since we don't have Jube here, I had to make a little promo for it, man. I wanted to, so let's see.
Let's do it.
This is for that event. For decades, Dr. Howard Fuller has fought for underserved students and families in this country. Now, for the first time, his story is on PBS. On March 18th, I am inviting you to watch a Fuller Education with us live, and then stay as board member Heather Harding. She's incredible, by the way, but stay as Heather Harding leads a real conversation with the man himself. We are joined by partners. I'm not coming alone. We have Brightbeam, One Public Media, Freedom to Choose Schools, the Center for Black Educator Development, and the great Memphis Lift. This is also the public launch of the Agentic Institute. It's free, it's virtual, March 18th, 5 p.m. Register in the description or the QR code, whatever you're looking on, there's a link there. We hope to see you there. I'm Dr. Charles Cole III. I'll see you on March 18th, the first of many. Peace. I don't know what 18th is. I see that, I didn't have time to edit it though, damn it, but it's there. You got the information, and there's the QR code. I will stay in this corner so people don't have to be blocked out by the QR code. There you go. That's all I got.
Excellent, man. Excellent. All right. Well, looks like I definitely plan to be there. So if you want to drop the registration link a little bit later, you should do that for people.
Oh, yeah. I'll drop the link, but they can go to this QR code right here, right now.
Got it.
It's right
Okay.
there. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So put together the show today because I was kind of scouring social media and just looking for things that were in the news. Obviously, we could sit here for an hour and talk about this war or talk about the Epstein files or talk about the price of gas and food and the overall eroding of our civil liberties. But so we're going to talk about civil liberties. We're going to talk about
laughing, but god dang, man.
Yeah.
Very depressing day. We can talk about a lot of depressing shit if you want.
That's some post-punk sadness and shit.
Hey, David, you're like, well, let's talk about kids losing their right to the.
Yes, exactly. Or what rights, or do they even have rights to lose?
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. So I saw an update to a case from a couple of years ago that was an update that came out today out of an appellate court, I think in California, the Ninth Circuit. I think they're out of California. But let me give you a little bit of background here, and I'll stop and pause because I think it'll be helpful to have some of your input too. So several years ago, there was a recent case, a federal court case that involved an elementary school in, I think it's Orange County, so Southern California, a school in a school district. The name of the school is Viejo Elementary School. It's very old. Everything there is old. And we're talking about an incident involving first grade students, okay? So here's the backdrop. Teachers giving a lesson about Martin Luther King.
Okay.
And mentioned the teacher mentions the phrase Black Lives Matter, right? That's kind of what we have in terms of what was happening in the classroom. After the lesson, a student felt compelled, as young people do often, to draw a photo for one of their fellow classmates with a little message on it. And I mean, essentially, it's a picture. It's it's a first grade picture, so it's like they're like kind of like stick figures, and there are like 4 or 5 of them, and the student drew them in like different colors: black, white, orange, brown, I think red, and wrote on it, "Black Lives Matter." The child misspelled "matter" for first grader, and underneath it wrote "any life." Right. So the student, I'm assuming the student was white. The student walks over, gives the to a student that's African American. Okay. A kid drew a photo for another student, feeling some kind of connection to them, or, wanting them to feel included, or whatever it was. Again, these are first graders. Classmate brings the drawing home to the parent, and then the parent calls the school, feeling like her child may have been singled out because of their race, right? I think Capistrano, this area is typically, there's not a large African American demographic, so it's probably one of the few African American kids in the class. Brings home this little drawing, says "Black Lives Matter." The parent gets upset and goes to the school and reports it. The school then puts the other first grader on
administrative leave. What are we doing?
Pretty much.
Administrative leave.
So they punished the student for 2 full weeks. Had them miss like recess and lunch, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Let me read this part too, because this is important context, talking about screwing up a situation. Okay, hold on. So Capistrano, here we go. So the administration pulls in this student, the first grader, and they here's the detail on. They made her apologize. Okay, you have to. Don't you always love the forced apologies? Say you're sorry. Okay. Not let her give. You can't give any of your other classmates any drawings. And kept her from recess for 2 weeks, right?
Damn.
And didn't even notify the parents. The parents.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, the parents were notified like way after the fact, which is insane. It's totally like, that's crazy. So anyways, that whole thing happens, and then the parent now of the 7th grader that drew the
7th or
drawing,
2nd?
First
grader, right?
Yeah, 7-year-old.
7-year-old
takes the school district to court for violating free speech rights. So now we have a free speech case that now we're talking in the early elementary years. So the question is, like, do students, even at that young age, are they even able to exercise freedom of speech, right? So the case centers on whether every young student has a constitutional speech protection at school. We know that when young people walk onto public school grounds, they do lose some portion of their constitutional rights, even high school. But now we're talking about like very young students. And so the court, the appeals court for the 9th Circuit recently ruled, as of I think today or yesterday, they overturned the lower court's decision, pushed it back, and ruled that elementary school students do have First Amendment protections. And the courts must apply the standard that was established in a former Supreme Court case called Tinker versus Des Moines. Do either one of you have any background on Tinker? Can we talk about Tinker for a minute?
You said it's in Des Moines, right?
Tinker
versus Des Moines.
Yeah, I don't.
It was involving involving high school students during the Vietnam War. and a student wore an armband with a
yeah, it's the black
like a
armband
peace sign.
case. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've read that one.
So it's like a case where the student, was expressing their frustrations with the war, and then the court ultimately decided that it did not disrupt learning to a point where the speech needed to be curbed. Right. So that's the limit. You can, if it infringes on others' rights or if it disrupts learning, it may not be protected. Right. But here we have this case where, I don't know, like a first grader, they're talking about the constitutional rights of first graders, challenging them either way. So I wanted to stop there and just get your quick take on what you've heard so far.
I mean, what are we doing? What the fuck?
That is a perfectly appropriate response.
What are we doing? Black, white kid, whatever. These are first graders. I have so many questions, right? Because the internet cuts things, right? So, I'm like, okay, if we have an lecture on Martin Luther King, I don't know where Black Lives Matter necessarily comes in, but I don't know the context of how that was discussed. It doesn't sound like, I don't know if this kid was being malicious or funny. I doubt it. It sounded like, I don't know. I don't know if this kid is just being empathetic and heard these things. And it's like, it ain't that many of you here. I want to, and maybe, and they probably got some parents that was on the all live. It just leaves so much speculation, but you can't handle educating first graders. Like you can't, you don't know how to take in just topics. Like kids come into classrooms at that age and say wild shit all the time. You want to hear one of the craziest things I heard when I was a social worker and in one of our first grade? It was like a kindergarten class. You want to hear what I heard a bunch of kids saying? I'll tell you. One of the kids were bragging about their parents, right? What their parents did, how rich their parents were. One of the kids says, my mama's boyfriend is so rich that when he comes over, he throws gold away in the trash can in the bathroom. Give it a second. We're like, oh, we hear this. So are y'all following that yet? I can explain what that is.
I think I know what you're talking about.
The kid's mom's boyfriend, he comes over and he leaves, he throws gold away in the bathroom sink. It's basically a Magnum condom wrapper.
Oh shit.
So I'm the social worker there. I'm there observing a young person because we had a special needs kid. This was not a special needs kid, but we're observing, we're doing stuff. We let the teacher know, and the teacher, like an adult, pulls the child and is just like, hey, let's stop doing that. Talks to the mom. These other kids don't really know, but we're very clear. Hey, when you tell your parents this story, tell them that we talked to you all. And then the teacher just talked to everybody's parents and shit moved on, right? Like kids say wild things. I've embarrassed my parents. They said, draw something that you see around your house. I told y'all I was poor. I drew a roach. You know how embarrassing that is for my mom? The point that I'm making is we don't have to over politicize everything, yo. Like this is
right.
And when you punish a child that young and they don't know why they're being punished, like they have no idea, what do you think that implants on them? What do you think that does? And something that was probably innocuous or, innocent. Now you are rooting something and you're planting a seed in a child that can grow into something really, really vile later on, as opposed to taking this as a learner, as a teachable moment. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I'm up here worried about literacy. If we can't do this common sense shit, right? How am I going to talk about scaffolded teaching?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, David. That was probably a terrible response.
No. I mean, it's
man.
When you step back and look at it, the whole thing is pretty ridiculous. But
it's fucking absurd. I'll go in a different direction. I'll go in a different direction. And look, Doc's absolutely right. There's no contradiction here. And this is first grade, like 7-year-olds, man. So just for context for our audience, students in 7th grade, those are 13-year-olds, have difficulty understanding cause and effect. We're talking about first graders, right? So this is where I get really pissed off at teachers, because it's just like, who the fuck is you? And like, how did you not figure out when you started teaching first graders that like, this is not an indoctrination camp? This is an opportunity to have like dialogue and free expression and figure shit out. And like the fact that you're talking about First Amendment rights with a first grader, it's just like crazy, because it's less about freedom of speech and freedom of expression. It is about allowing a child to explore without confinement. And this is my like big scruples with schools. And I've had these scruples with schools since the beginning. It's like, look, I don't know which of you think that schools is an indoctrination factory. Like maybe that is what's going on, but it shouldn't be what is happening. Maybe schools were set up to be indoctrination factories, which personally I actually think that they are. They actually should be, in my opinion, places of imagination and thought and wonder and safety, and allowing this like exploration to happen without any kind of judgment. And then some teacher comes in, is like, fuck you, first grader. I'm going to show you what it means to be a true Monami, and starts like hammering down without even telling the parent. Like, dude, you know how pissed I would be, dude? Imagine if you were the parent of that kid. I would have like gone in there and fucking punched. That's some Samuel Jackson beer. You might even fight a fucker or two. And I'm like, yeah. Like, it's the most absurd shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. When you start talking about the First Amendment rights of a 7-year-old, right? I want to understand, what the fuck are we even discussing? Because why should First Amendment rights even be brought into a conversation with a first grader? Like Doc's right. Like wild shit happens. And the minute you start inhibiting a child's speech or thought train, you are teaching all the wrong shit. It is really about questioning and like, well, what did you mean by this? And let's help us understand your context. And then you always find out exactly what Doc said. It was radically innocent. Radically innocent. And what you're doing is setting neuro pathways. And this is how adults destroy kids. And I'm like, hey, like, maybe that teacher should get the fuck out of the classroom, because like, if you're going to sit here and have a First Amendment discussion with like first graders, like someone should have a Second Amendment discussion with your ass. I'm just joking about that shit. I'm just joking. That's a joke.
But that's what I'm saying. And David, I don't want to hog the space, and definitely, push us. But my thing is just like, it makes me worry about this teacher's management of young people. Like, you're gonna see the wildest of stuff. These are young humans that are trying things, developing. They're gonna be outside picking up stuff they see on the ground, and hey, don't touch that. And kids are looking in a toilet. Like, yeah, I was a social worker, so I obviously I'm used to seeing these type of things. But the teachers that I worked with were well trained, and they understood how to deal age appropriately with these things as they come up, is what I'm saying. Yeah. And if you're struggling with something like this, I'm just go ahead.
I don't know if it was the teacher, to be fair. It was probably an administrator that Maybe. pulled the trigger on this stuff. But me too. I think schools get and just adults in general can get into this habit of applying like adult kind of mindsets and adult intentions and what could look like adult activities onto children, and that's very dangerous.
It is fucking dangerous, dude. Like what? Yeah. Like these kids don't understand that shit.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, and so we have, I've had situations where I've had parents come in and, were like truly, truly traumatized, because their student, who maybe was a female, had been like dogpiled on during lunchtime or recess by a group of other kids. And, we always had like yard supervisors out there, but, you can't see everything. So no punches were thrown, but like kids roll on each other. That's what they do. That's what first graders do. And for this mother, I don't know what she had going on in her life, but she'd spun it into her head that like these kids were like essaying her daughter. And I'm like, kids rub on each other. They roll on each other, she thought that it was like intentional and premeditated. And like, I was like, that is not and that's so unfair to all the children, right? Because then you're setting your child up to be a victim, and you're setting these other kids up to be like, what? No. And I think the same thing is happening here I know it is. It's ridiculous. This kid had a moment where, and I will say, I think the parent, of the student that brought the painting, the little drawing home, also probably overreacted. I'm like, come on, dude, come on. Your kid came home with something, a student wrote Black Lives Matter on it, all lives or all humans or whatever. I'm like, so, but then it gets out of control. And then the other issue I have is, I think before we move on to like the teaching component, because I want to get to that, but to not notify a parent, and this is how you're seeing a lot of this happen right now, seeing a lot of like studies and research around the quote unquote unreported discipline that happens in schools. That's a suspension. If you pull a child from any kind of regular classroom,
that's a lot.
Activity, including recess, if you remove them from their peer group, that is a suspension. And then, so they didn't have to report to the family because it's not at home. And so, schools have all these informal systems of suspending kids without ever having checked the box that they got suspended,
Yeah, and just to stay there, David, like, because there's multiple levels that were failed here. Because even I can empathize with the family. I can empathize with any type of family that whether it's from your coach that comes home and it's something like a slur or you just don't know what's going on, especially if it ain't that many of you there. Like, I get that, but even when they come, you need an adult to kind of be like, we actually should have. We didn't know, but we're gonna look at it. Okay, this is what happened. This is what's going on. Bring people in. I'm not about to go on the whole restorative justice rant, but this is like this is the roots of like restorative justice of like, no, let's just have this conversation. Right. It's a teachable moment, or like, what are we doing? How are we doing this? Now, I would also say too, I think people have to be careful when you're talking about elementary kids in all school period. I think that teachers sharing their personal beliefs in classrooms is a very slippery slope. Universities is a little different because you go to, you kind of know what you're signing up for. But especially in public education, like, you got to be, and nobody's telling teachers they got to put a muzzle on and not necessarily be themselves, but you have to be the arbiter of teaching and learning in that moment. Yeah. And people are going to, that's how you don't come out the womb knowing these things all the time. And kids are going to ask questions when you introduce things like this into it, because that's why I said I'm interested in what the lecture or the lesson was, because I'm trying to see the connection of like Black Lives Matter, like, to it. You know what I'm saying? Those are two different times. I could see somebody make one, but I don't know even where this teacher stood on those things or what they were saying. So
I had this, like, I had another experience at the other end of the spectrum in high school, where a Spanish teacher at the school where I was principal had decided to go off of course and have a free, open dialogue with students about a current event that had happened. So, Omar, this is like in probably like 20 years ago. There was in Richmond, California, so like north of Oakland, there was a school dance at like Richmond High School, and some people had come onto the campus, and like there was a sexual assault, a real one, right? And it was really ugly. It was a bad situation. And And so my Spanish teacher comes in the following Monday and opens a conversation with students about what happened in Richmond. And one of the students in her class made the statement that that sometimes women lie about these things, right? And I mean, it's actually that's a true statement, right? And how did the teacher deal with it? Flew off the handle, called him a misogynist, and kicked him out of the classroom, right? So now he's in the office. I got to go talk to him. He's like, Mr. Castillo, what is a misogynist? And I was like, well, I don't think it's you. But like, who called you a misogynist? Give me the context. And man, I went back and had words with her, and I was like, if you're going to veer off of course, you're clearly not prepared to have these conversations because you got emotional and you snapped at a student, and that's never okay. This was not part of your lesson. If we're going to do a school-wide kind of teach-in, we'll provide you with curriculum and like training and a format to have these conversations. And that's how it is, but you took a risk, an uncalculated risk. And within 2 weeks I'd fired her. I was like, I can't deal with people like this. Mm-hmm. And so it comes down, and it could look like that in the first grade too. You could open up a conversation, even just a simple presentation on who was Malcolm X, or not Malcolm. You're not going to teach Malcolm X in the first grade in San Juan Castro.
Autobiography, teach that autobiography.
They're going to teach MLK because it's a little safer, right?
Right.
But even like here's MLK. He had a dream. Blah blah blah. And kids are going to say stuff. He was ugly. I heard that he had multiple women on the side. It's like, how do you deal with that, right, in the classroom as a teacher?
Well, especially in a YouTube era that we're in, right, where they can instantly go and see a million different messages. I mean, again, somebody has to be.
So we want these conversations to happen. We don't want to pretend that the real world is not the real world. And so the question for you all is like, so we have to train teachers to do this, right? And it feels like we're going totally back into like this world that we're coming out of like, no, we're not going to talk about race in the classroom. We should be talking about race in the classroom. So how do we train our teachers to do that?
Yeah, man.
And when is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate?
I mean, I think one is like, what's your lesson plan? Like, what are you actually, let's actually look at that. I think two, like this has to, for as much as people complain about teacher training and like prep sessions and things like that, like schools are just wasting prep money because the teachers don't want to do the prep. Like this, you got to be willing to handle this stuff. And it feels like this stuff is starting to happen more and more. And especially when we're talking about kindergarten, first, second, third grade. I mean, people, if you knew the things that you would see in the early education space, like what you know about having to accompany kids to the bathroom because some kid is having an exploration phase and grabbing stuff out the toilet and like these things happen. They happen. That's why, and a lot of times kindergarten, first and second grade teachers don't get a lot of credit, but there's a lot of skill needed to be an effective teacher like that because you're dealing with so much stuff. There's so many things you're going to deal with that's not on the paper. And you have to, they almost get trained like social workers. They almost get trained in that kind of way. So, I mean, it worries me. One is the outside noise of everything happening is starting to creep in and we're not correcting things the way that we need to. That's one. But two, I'm concerned about that leadership and how you handle that stuff. You have to learn how to nip that stuff in the bud. I think a good principal hits that stuff head on and it's just like, hey, we can have this conversation. Like you tamp it down early. Like even for the family where the kid came home, because especially if I don't have any context, right? If I think my kid just had a hate crime, I'm probably gonna have some. But if I get on with Principal Castillo or Principal Yanar and they're like, we got you, Dr. Cole. Like, let me tell you what happened. These are kids. Oh, okay. This is what we're going to do. This is the conversation. We like you to come in and we bring another parent in just to kind of, know, like, but how you handle it as the administrator, how you handle it as the authority figure, tends to control how it escalates. Now, you can't control everybody's behavior. You can't control everybody going off the handle. But in these times, like me and Omar were joking, everything is fucking depressing right now. Somebody has to be the modicum of stability, especially around children. Dare I even say, these are babies. What are you doing?
I mean,
The principle.
I not only do I agree, but like, here's my philosophy on management. And this is something that I learned a long time ago that has served me well. So, and I've consulted a lot of other organizations on the same shit at this point. And it's such a simple piece of advice. But I'm like, look, if you're a manager, if you're a leader, I want you to do something. You like, especially if you're in education, like, I want you to imagine the adults as the children themselves. And I don't mean that in a condescending format. I don't mean that in a pejorative. And I certainly don't mean that in derogatory stance. I'm like, the same patience you would have with a kid, I need you to have that same patience with an adult. They may not know any better. Like, you're making a lot of assumptions. They were raised the same way you were. They had the same training you did, the same education you did, the same opportunities. And it's a bad assumption, because what you're doing is making assumptions, and assumptions are deadly, very deadly, especially the workplace. My assumption is, I think, if I could aggrandize myself a bit, sadly, is a benevolence of, hey man, make the assumption that they may not know. So go ask some questions, ask them, get to know them, get to understand that adult, get to understand what their needs are. And then that way you can really help train them up and coach them, because they may never have been presented with a situation like this. And one situation that I think is pervasive across cultures, countries, languages, is that people have not understood how to emotionally regulate themselves. So they get into an emotionally charged situation, and then instead of acting calm and logical like a leader should, like a teacher should, they will react emotionally. That's what this teacher did. And an emotional reaction, ladies and gentlemen, in front of kids, not okay. Fucking not okay. Hey, all of y'all out there, this is a podcast. We get to be as emotional as we want. When you're in the workplace, and especially in front of children who absorb things,
That's true.
you saying, well, I'm human, I'm emotional, these things are going to happen, you're fucking unprofessional, because you haven't learned that emotional regulation is part of the job when you are working with young people, because they will take your emotional reaction and run with it. And that's, you've just taught them the wrong fucking lesson. Well, I'm emotional. That's how I am. That's what I do. And I'm like, motherfucker, I don't care what color you are, what gender you are. Kids will absolutely absorb and mimic anything you do. And your emotional reaction was not only immature, not only stunted, but radically damaging. Because they will take that and run with it and think that that's okay because you're an adult in their life. So my thinking is, how do I teach adults how to work with their emotions, how to emotionally regulate themselves, how to have a second reaction? The second reaction means you have a first reaction. That's an emotional one. That's okay. How you react, which is what Einstein said, by the way, look that up. That's a good time. That's a great Einstein quote, is what is going to matter. So your second reaction is that, okay, I feel this, I understand it, this is okay, but my reaction is going to be calm, soothing, and controlled, so that I'm not creating this situation where I'm thereby teaching children that emotionally reacting to everything is the right way to go. And that's a problem that we have in this country. And what's going on, and like, not to get on a fucking rant here, but all of you all bitches out there,
Jesus,
you're like highly emotional reactions. When it comes to politics, when it comes to all this shit, it's like you're sitting here reacting, hurting another human being because you feel something and you feel this thing. That's great that you have feelings. It's great that you have emotions. It is not great that you're sitting here and pouring out your hatred, your paradigms, your biases on others without taking a moment to just simply self-reflect and be like, why do I feel this? Is this the right emotion and the right audience to have? Like, that's why you got friends, man. That's why you've got significant others, because those emotions and those reactions are great in those spaces where you feel safe in front of coworkers and children and everybody else. Like, sorry, man, maybe it's the Gen X in me. Maybe it's the fact that like I've done all the literature and studying about this extensively. You are damaging kids. And when you start acting like First Amendment rights need to be brought into a discussion with first graders, maybe it's not the kid, maybe it's you.
I know you want to
We used
move
to
on
show,
to the another part, David. So, oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. That's all.
We used to use this this model of the brain with kids at Urban Montessori. So when and adults too, when like you would,
And by the way, I love
feel
this
yourself,
philosophy.
like flipping your lid, right? So you have a hand. The front part is like the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala, the emotional part, is like of your brain is your thumb. So this is like your brain, and when you're flipping your lid, you're like this, right? You're totally exposed, and you're just like raw emotions coming out. So so I agree. I want to get back to this principal piece too, because the principal in this case made some very specific moves that could have avoided this whole thing, and probably would have, and then we wouldn't have to sit here and talk about this for an hour. So the principal classic move is to like, how can I do this without bringing in parents, right? Which is always never going to work, right? And so they
not at that age. I mean, even in high school, I bring in the parents, like especially first graders.
Well, they thought they had a little solution. We'll just take care of this in-house. We're not going to notify the parents. And I don't know what the mindset of the principal was, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that this principal just doesn't want to get into this like emotional kind of like race-based discussion, and just averting a hard conversation, which is like not a good place for a leader to be. You should do the exact, and I think administrators need training too in facilitating conversations with
we
parents,
all do, brother.
right?
I
don't think that's part of any like administrator training program that I've ever been in, but you kind of learn it as you go. But I think that's where you can bring in like restorative practices, like what Charles was talking about. It's not a golden, it's not a silver bullet, but there are different ways to bring parents in. I mean, I've facilitated meetings with parents where like we had straight up like violence, like guns were pulled, and you're bringing in like, people from like different sets, and people that had generational, I mean, really crazy stuff. But you can't, as a school leader, you sit at the center of a community, and if you want that community to be whole, whether it be a high school, middle school, elementary school, as a school leader, you have to like lean into those conversations. Because if you lean into them, your teachers are going to see like, oh shit, Dr. Cole had this big, he brought in all the parents about this thing, and they see you in the middle of that, or Mr. Yanar brought in all these parents from this incident, and like they were all in his office, and we don't know what happened, but like he's engaging in it, right? He's like not looking the other way. And this is a very clear case where this administrator wanted to just like look the other way, sweep it under the rug, and now it's like tied up in our court system when they could be dealing with so many other important things. Yeah, wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, man. Listen, I mean, I'll go quick, and because Omar can probably go in deeper on this principal thing, but I'm gonna go principal and then zoom out to the larger microcosm that I'm seeing. I mean, listen, we're just in a time where everybody's afraid to have conversations with everybody, with people, and nobody's being honest. Nobody, and again, we think we're in this great time of transparency when all we're actually doing is teaching people how to hide and lie more so they can get by, and we're losing the essence of actual curiosity and conversation and wonder. And that's how you get these issues with these kids, because when kids don't have that filter. When this happens, they're not afraid of the world like that yet. So they're just asking questions. They're just living their life. So when you're a principal and you have these moments, you got to be ready to take them directly and head on. And you got to be strong enough in yourself to kind of deal with it. And hopefully you have a board or a superintendent or a CMO that has your back. But zooming out to the larger microcosm is the more that people are afraid to engage in these conversations. Like even what you said, David, I felt myself repelling when you mentioned the issue in Richmond, because we just know that it's dangerous territory, even though this is a fact that you cannot just off the cuff believe everybody. My grandmother is buried in the same cemetery as Emmett Till, who was there because somebody lied. So like, if this is going to hurt us more as a society, especially in times like this with these people. And that's why you get charlatans and people like that in office, because everybody's afraid of their own dirt coming up, that they're not able to engage with these things, even when it's the innocence of 7-year-olds that are just trying to, like, I don't know if this kid was trying to be funny, or it could be so many different things on the spectrum of maybe the kid's trying to be a little jerk, or maybe the kid is just trying to show empathy of like, oh man, that story moved me. Like, I want to draw a connection. I don't know. But this is like supposed to be a golden moment of teaching and education. And we can't do this right. Maybe I need to stop fighting this battle about literacy and agency and just get down to human decency, because we're failing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, I just like that, man. I like that.
Me. What the fuck are you talking about?
Right. I'll be even quicker. And this has become a recent pattern, super recent, in a bunch of work that I'm doing. So my professor, a dude named Ronald Heifetz, badass dude, badass books. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's worth your time. Taught leadership through a psychological lens. And he left us with some like parting words at the last class that have resonated with me almost on a daily basis. And 3 lessons, but one of them was learn to ask better questions. Mm-hmm. And as a principal, as a teacher, you should lead with inquiry. And that's a quote that I stole from my boy, Andrew Benitez, co-founder of the El Paso Leadership Academy, good friend, badass dude. Lead with inquiry. We make assumptions, we criticize, we talk shit. And this is what I was saying earlier, is that like all these people that make all of these radical assumptions and start criticizing are failing preposterously at showing children and adults, maybe we should ask a couple questions before we judge. Maybe we should start providing some inquiry to understand this scenario, and especially in a first grader who could be coming at this from 17 different angles. Even a middle schooler. I mean, I dealt with some like pretty heavy shit when I was a 7th grade teacher, and I was trying to be more than anything just inquisitive about, well, where's this coming from? And tell me where you heard this. And usually be like, well, my daddy said this. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I, get daddy on the phone, and then I ask daddy a bunch of questions, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got a general understanding of where this is coming from. A first grader is so far out of that 7th grade high school spectrum that this conversation has become ridiculous, because it is all about inquiry. And to shut inquiry down and to not be the guide of inquiry makes you a bitch. I don't care, again, what gender, what like race,
right,
what
man.
anything, man. Like you're
terrible,
like
man.
you're
Terrible.
a bitch ass bitch.
Jesus.
Like that's the only tool that you have, is to like suspend some kid. And if you're that kid, if you're the student that wrote the note, dude, I mean, imagine like 2 weeks for a first grader is like a year.
I'm never
That's
being
insane.
nice to anybody again.
Exactly. I'm
Ever.
never
You just shut that kid down for life.
I'm never writing you. You're never getting a birthday card.
And I'm never talking to people that look like you again. I don't want to deal
I'm
with
not
you.
celebrating Christmas anymore.
I'm not doing any of this. Like, what are we talking about?
This stuff has like, you know, long-term, you know, impacts, man, for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
Like, I'm just saying, like, what are you look, you took the most valuable thing to a 7-year-old away for 2 weeks.
Yes.
You get, just for the record, you get less time for punching somebody in the face. You get less time for punching a kid in the face. Yeah. And what makes it even worse is, like, what if that kid really did just have the best of intentions? Now, what I will highlight, because I highlight this in the BAFTA thing, but that's about adults. Now, if this kid that got the letter is feeling a type of way, is dealing with stuff and processing, we also got to look out for this kid and have conversation. But this is a teachable moment in multiple ways. And like, this is an actual opportunity. And so, you know, I'm not trying to forego this other child either. I'm just saying, man, you don't take a sledgehammer to an ant, yo. That's just not what you do. What are you? I'm trying to create the next Mussolini, bro. Like, what are you doing? This is the villain origin story of that's
exactly right. That's exactly right. I've seen this in a couple comics. I've seen this in a couple books. That's exactly right.
Like Magneto watching his, like, they're Jewish, watching their family get taken away from Nazis, and like this is how he discovers his power, because they're getting drug away, and he like, I can control whatever. Oh my God, I hate all these people forever. Like, this is how you build. This is the beginning of a bad novel. What are we doing?
It is, man. It's bad. It's bad. Okay, so, and it's interesting too, because there's also a lot of stuff coming out now on school districts that are like starting to reinstitute like official suspensions for like kindergartners, first graders, second graders. I'm like, what the hell, dude? That's another show, but it's related, man. I'm just like, they're children.
Were you in Oakland when Lafayette, like, it was like a first or second grader, somebody very young, and they put him in cuffs? Were you around for that?
I don't think so, man.
I was at the district. It was
sounds
crazy.
Very Lafayette-ish.
It was crazy. I went to Lafayette Elementary, and it's in West Oakland, not the city Lafayette.
Oh, you meant Lafayette, the city.
No.
City of Lafayette.
No. I'm talking about at Lafayette Elementary School.
Oh my God!
They called the police on a very, very, very young child who may have been unruly. I'm sorry. If a second grader giving you that type of grief, we got to get you up out of there, cuz I'm sorry. Like, what do you think the implications of putting handcuffs on a prepubescent 8-year-old like does to them? I've had handcuffs on as an adult.
Take him downtown at that point, you know.
It's crazy. Anyway.
It happens. You see it. So that'll be another interesting thing that we need to follow, because they are like, so, you know, educators, and I think it's not easy in schools right now. I get that, but getting to the point where you want to start reinstituting like suspensions for the earliest grade levels is like wild. So do that another show.
Okay, Omar. Okay.
No, look, dude.
Go ahead.
Just my quick 2 cents. I get really upset, and this is just me, man, because I feel like teachers and adults are like, well, these kids need punishment, they need repercussions, and they think that suspension is going to do it. Like, well, I taught them a lesson. And like, yeah, Crystal, thank you so much, man. It's a good ass abbreviation that I may start using from now on. That's some BAB type shit right there. Because like, it's not rooted in any science. It's not rooted in any psychology. It's just rooted in being a bitch. It's just like, well, they did this thing, so I'm going to suspend them, and that's punishment. I'm like, yeah, you're going to send a high school kid home for 3 days to go play Xbox and like PlayStation for 3 days. There's no restorative nature of it. There's no helping the student understand what they did. There's no reflection on it. Your punishment that may have worked for you because your parents provided the punishment because of your suspension, thinks that applies to everybody else. Like, nah, man. No.
Yeah.
You're living in a paradigm and a world that's so self-centered and so stupid and so filled with like literally insipid self-centeredness. Well, this worked for me. Did you bother to find out what works for everybody else? Did you bother to figure out how the system works?
Yeah.
No,
and
you didn't.
You also walked to school both ways uphill in the snow. You know?
Right.
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 Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's just that is the perpetuation of why I feel like great leadership and great teaching is difficult, because it requires an insane level of inquiry and hard work to discover not just what worked for me, not just what works for them, what works for everybody. Everything must be so differentiated in how you handle things with one kid as it does another, because it's just lazy as shit to be like, this thing works for everybody. And it's just like, you don't want to think. And I get that. You're a lazy piece of shit. And your lack of thinking should put you somewhere far away from kids or adults or anywhere else that it's going to have a massive impact. I see it in the White House. I see it in Fortune 500 companies. I see it in people that I am consulting right now where I'm like, I get it. But thank you for paying me $750 an hour, because I'm glad to do the thinking for you when that is the price tag that's attached to it. But when it's attached to children, when it's attached to everybody else, when it has massive repercussions, to the point, David, Doc, where we're talking about this is getting up into constitutional discussions, where like a court case that could have constitutional ramifications, First Amendment ramifications in a first fucking grade class. Bitch, please.
If you can't, I know it's final thoughts.
Catching bullets with your teeth.
Final thought. We're doing final thoughts. Go ahead. Final thoughts.
Oh,
I think that was your final thought.
I thought that's what you were going to, David. It's your show. Go ahead, brother.
That is my final thought right
That
there,
was,
baby.
that was
I just
definitely
gave
a
it.
final thought. Charles,
Hell
let me
yeah.
just do something real quick.
Mine is definitely a final thought too, but go ahead.
Okay, so just to reground us in like what the constitutional issues here, and forget about the early elementary stuff. Let's just middle school, high school. Students do not shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate, right? However, and that comes from the Tinker case from Des Moines. Schools can place limits. They can restrict student rights when it comes to maintaining order and discipline, whatever that means. Preventing disruption of learning, assuming that learning is happening, and protecting the rights and safety of other students. Okay. So let's see what else. Freedom of religion. Students can pray privately and form religious clubs. Right. Outside of what's happening in Texas with putting the freaking 10 Commandments on the wall. It's crazy. Fourth Amendment also is another interesting one, which we can get into. I think this is an interesting thread. Schools cannot search students without reasonable reason. And there's a couple of very interesting Supreme Court cases on that. Due process, students must be given notice and a chance to respond before being suspended. That includes parent notification, which didn't happen in this time. And the courts often say that schools act in a position of in loco parentis, meaning they have some authority similar to parents while students are in their care. And so that's why you have some of these exceptions, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just wanted to like get back to that original point.
And that makes sense. I mean, I think there's probably some of the stuff around ages of consent and where you are and things like that, or like even on that search thing. That's why most of the traditional public schools in Chicago, the backpacks have to be clear. So we don't have to search. The backpack is clear. That's our policy. There's ways to circumvent. But my final thought, just as I touch on all of this, right, is just it's just a question it's just something to ponder for the audience on the way out. If we've gotten to a place of such toxicity in this country where we are afraid to actually just mitigate and speak to
Yeah.
developing minds as young as 7 and 8 years old, to like really kind of do. And this is the time of fable and fairy tale logic. This is where we're sharing stories of like Aesop's fables
Yes.
to teach lessons. Like this is
Yes.
where that is supposed to be happening. It is really a fun time. Like even now as I'm grown, and you know, you got the doctorate. The first thing when you get a doctorate, what everybody asks you, y'all, what are you reading? And I'm like, yo, the best thing that I've still ever read to this day is The Emperor's Clothes, right? The Emperor's New Clothes, whatever. Because I think the lesson of it is such a beautiful lesson, especially for now, right now. But if we are scared to do this with 7-year-olds, if we're scared of that level of confrontation at this level, then we are cooked as adults. We are like, make room for the next set of Trumps. Make room for the next bold leaders that come into a room, and we got all these people that don't know how to deal with bullying and don't know how to deal with people. Like that's why these people are there. And and shout out to Sharif as I close out, even though it's an African proverb, but he always reminds us, Chris does too. How are the children? How are the elders? And right now, neither are doing okay. And usually when both of those are suffering at the same time, civilizations tend to crumble directly thereafter. So take that as you will. But great show and topic today, David.
All right. Well, there you go. Thanks everybody for joining us. South Star Classroom episode 226. Yeah, we've got myself, David Castillo, we've got Dr. Charles Cole, we've got Mr. Omar Yanar, and also shout out to Jubilee. Yep, we hope to see you back next week.
We'll
be back here next week, same time, same channel. Thanks for being here, and peace out. Take care, everybody.
We have a commercial to take us out. So, man,
all right.
It's great stuff. Peace. For decades, Dr. Howard Fuller has fought for underserved students and families in this country. Now, for the first time, his story is on PBS. On March 18th, I am inviting you to watch A Fuller Education with us live, and then stay as board member Heather Harding. She's incredible, by the way. But stay as Heather Harding leads a real conversation with the man himself. We are joined by partners. I'm not coming alone. We have Brightbeam, One Public Media, Freedom to Choose Schools, the Center for Black Educator Development, and the great Memphis Lift. This is also the public launch of the Agentic Institute. It's free, it's virtual, March 18th, 5 p.m. Register in the description or the QR code. Whatever you're looking on, there's a link there. We hope to see you there. I'm Dr. Charles Cole III. I'll see you on March 18th, the first of many. Peace. We should be out, but let me just do it. It was supposed to do that. It's all good. I won't play the outro. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.